because I had this thought, and I believe it was the Spirit of God. The word says that the Spirit of the Lord searches to and fro the earth, like looking for that broken spirit. And I think He found me in that moment because I had this thought that I think came from the Spirit of God, and it was this can't be what life is. This can't be what life is. Um, so I cried out to God for the first time, and I was 22, and I lived in Jersey City, and I was walking to go do something that wasn't good, um, and I didn't want to do it, but I had to do it. And I was walking down towards Palace. There's a Palisade Avenue in Jersey City, and I got to that corner on 1 and 9 in Palisade Avenue, and I looked to the left, and this is part of my testimony. There was a hospital. It was called Christ Hospital,
Wow.
and it was in the letters on the side of the hospital. So I cried out to God, and I said I need help. And then 2 blocks later, I see Christ Hospital. So right there in that moment, I was like, is that God? So that began my journey. Shortly after that, I went to rehab, and I was saved at a Salvation Army men's program in Binghamton, New York. I accepted the Lord, and my life started to change. I started to feel better. I started to, really be conscious and aware, and trying not to sin and trying to live a righteous life. But I really didn't understand the cross. I still believed that God wasn't here, that He was still somewhere else. It was at a young age, I guess. I could see that the world was still pulling at me, and I was so mature at that time that I didn't understand the cross. And then, like, after I was saved, like 8 months later, I just walked away from God and started, living in sin again, and then I just stayed away from God for the next 30 years. And I always had a belief in God, and I think there's a difference in believing in Christ. You can be a believer in Christ, but to be a follower of Christ is totally different, and that's what's been the difference in my life,
Yeah.
for sure. There were moments where I got sober, and even in sobriety, I went to AA for a couple of years and got sober for I think the longest I had was 3 years. But I had gotten to a point, even in my sobriety, where I was like, okay, this is great, I'm sober, but I still felt that there was something else. It can't just be about sobriety. There's got to be more. And I didn't know that God did have more than just me being sober. And now I could see what a life surrendered to God now, to be a follower of Jesus. That's been the difference in my life, and that's been the difference now in my son's life, and just everyone that I encounter in my daily life.
So you lived, so pretty much after you got saved, after, Salvation Army, you were kind of, God was up there, not in here.
Right.
You kind of were like in and out of your faith, pretty much.